this hot mic moment where someone mutters Ron's probably getting out after Iowa. Let's imagine this scenario, that Ron actually decides, for whatever happens in Iowa, his showing wasn't good enough and it's time to end this race. The worst possible thing imaginable would be you then leaving the race as well, because it would by default give us either Trump or Haley.
And I'm definitely not, exactly,
And
for that reason.
That's a nightmare scenario.
But, look, I think, I have my own views. I think we're going to deliver a major surprise here in Iowa. We can talk about that separately. I think we're going to shock the system, and the vibes on the ground are very good. But as part of the 50,000-foot view here, I actually think if you play this out intuitively, it feels like the next step in the game among the corporate candidates is Ron would make a good vice president for Nikki, right? Christie out of the way is one footnote today. All right, eliminate part of the consolidation in New Hampshire. Christie's not running for president of the United States ever. He was arguably running for vice president of New Hampshire. But anyway, once he exited, we'll actually combine that in to prop up Nikki a little bit more. The next thing is you take the Ron DeSantis. Ron DeSantis is not in New Hampshire so much, but in certain other states, Florida or otherwise, turn that over as well to the anti-Trump movement. I don't think Ron knows that. I think if people asked Ron DeSantis, he would say, of course I would not be Nikki's vice president. And I think inside him, he probably would believe that that's actually what he thinks. But that almost pretends that what he thinks actually matters. His donors are the one that put him up to run for president in the first place. I don't think the man on his own volition, I think there are other people who put him up to run for president at a time where it didn't make sense for him to do it. The same people are going to put him up to be Nikki's vice president. So you play this forward, that's where this goes. Final step, take Trump out of contention, trot the corporate puppets into office. That's where this plot ends. And I feel like I see this with a level of clarity that makes it torturous. It's like a kind of form of torture to watch this playing out in real time without standing up and actually doing something about it.
Let me real quick, just to get it in there. Scenario. Donald Trump wins the primary. He comes right on out and says, Vivek Ramaswamy, you are my vice president. What do you say?
Donald Trump wins you're saying Donald Trump wins the primary and then that. So I think we just have to have an honest conversation. I mean, if that's the scenario we're in, that's not what I'm playing for, but if that's what we're in, I have an inconvenient attribute, which is that I have opinions. I have strong opinions about things. I'm not somebody who really, rolls over or whatever. But what I've said is Donald Trump has my full support if he's the nominee. And I expect his full support if I'm the nominee. But I don't think we get to that place. That's the whole premise of when you think it's Gavin Newsom or Joe Biden as the puppet, you think you might get to that place. I don't think they want Biden or Newsom. I think Nikki is a far more reliable pawn for the system with respect to the two things they care about most, which is keeping the foreign war machine humming, far more reliable on places from the Middle East to Ukraine. She's far more hawkish than actually anybody in the Democratic side. And with respect to the national security state, I don't think Joe Biden could have come up with the idea if he tried to tie every social media account and internet account with a government-issued ID. So I don't think it goes there, Tim. I think where it goes is they want this late in the primary, and then they get the air cover because the Democratic Party's brand isn't doing too hot. The permanent state is fundamentally nonpartisan at its core. So they get the air cover of saying, oh, yeah, we weren't even doing the Democrat game where most of the Republican base watching cable news thinks it's about beating Biden. They're missing the plot. That's what's going on.
That's actually a really great point. We were talking just the other day, there was a story, a J.P. Morgan top strategist, I'm sure you heard, said his prediction is that Joe Biden drops out just after Super Tuesday due to a health issue. I view that as a very, very good strategy for Democrats. I had been saying for some time that I believe Joe Biden will drop out. His health is just not there. His polling is not there. It is political suicide. However, many people pointed out in our chats and in our audience that it's too late to have a primary. There's nothing they can do. Actually, that sounds like the best play. Joe Biden says, I'm running. No primary to be had. Don't worry about it. Come March, he says, oh no, my ailing heart. This gives the DNC the ability to just appoint who is going to be their nominee. However, I think you actually make a much better point. Why even worry about going into a political conflict with Donald Trump and the populist Republican base?
Yes.
When you can win from within with
exactly.
Nikki Haley.
And that's exactly what's going on. And also they have this ailing Kamala Harris problem because if anything other than Kamala Harris is the nominee, then they got the racist, misogynist thing going on, which undermines their own self-stated narrative. And I think just the brand of the Democratic Party for the Larry Finks or the establishment puppet masters of the world, it's a little tarnished right now. Let them heal themselves. We're going to do this within the Republican Party with a much more reliable vessel, with a little bit more of a polished exterior, a little bit more committed on the pro-war agenda, and a lot more committed on the censorship and national security agenda here at home.